Hi, in this video, we are going to dig deeper into the details of inheritance in Python. Okay, so even though we say that the derived class is the base class, like vertebrate is an animal, but the derived class is also almost always different from the base class. So, for example, even though in vertebrate the class inherits from animal, well, vertebrate has backbones, but not all animals do, right? They're invertebrates. Same thing for electric car. It's a car, but electric car very specifically uses an electric motor for its locomotive, right? But many cars don't do that. And then finally, coming back to our example, a teacher may have a salary, right? But a person, if the person doesn't work, doesn't necessarily have a salary, right? So we have to be able to then extend or adding capabilities to the derived class. All right, so how do we add a salary to the teacher? So now we would, instead of just the first name and the last name, we'll have to add a parameter, salary, right, to the init. So we'll copy and paste that, and we'll keep the first name and the last name, and we'll add a salary parameter. Obviously, we still need the first name and the last name attribute that makes a teacher a person. And then finally, we add a salary attribute and remember the value from the parameter. Right? And now, when we instantiate teacher, we have to give a value to the salary parameter. Teacher makes very little money, so very little money it is. Okay, so that's that. And when you run it, well, it works. Let me make sure. Yeah, I've said everything that I want to say. So one thing about terminology is when we redefine a method that already exists in the base class, we are overriding the base class's method, right? In this case, it's standard init. And again, yeah, we're keeping all the attributes of a person, but we're defining a new attribute. Now, when we run this code, we see that it still just print out the name. And the reason it just print out the name is it tries to call the string method for a teacher. Well, then the teacher doesn't define a the string method, so it would go to the base class of teacher, which does define a the string method. So for that one, it only prints out the first name and the last name, and that's all we see here. Now, in order to print out also the salary, then we would have to define or redefine or override the string method and maybe add the salary equals the attribute salary. Oh, what did I type? Salary. Okay. All right. So once that's done, then hopefully when I run this, I'll have the salary that's shown for the teacher now. So, all right, it works, but let me make sure. Yeah, this is what the data string is. Yeah, yeah. Again, terminology. Data string overrides the base classes data string method. However, if you look at this definition of teacher, what's the problem with it? Well, remember what we said about the benefit of inheritance. It's code reuse, right? And also common behavior can easily be modified. However, by copy, paste, and do slight modification to the base classes method, we kind of defeat the purpose of both, right? We're no longer reusing code. And again, if we want to switch the last name and the first name, then now we have to do it in the person class and the teacher class again. So not good. So what can we do to bring back the benefit of inheritance? Well, if you look at the definition that for example, the definition of dunder init in both the person and teacher class, well, the first two lines of code, they are exactly the same, right? They are to create the first name and the last name attributes. Now, what if we just get rid of the two lines in the teacher's dunder init method? What if we just do that? Would that be okay? Well, we can try it. If we run this, we have a problem. And it says that I think when we're trying to print out the teacher in the dunder string method, the teacher object does not have a first name, right? And that is because, right, in the teacher's dunder init method, we did not create the first name and the last name attributes. We only created the salary. Now, in order to create the first name and the last name attribute without duplicating these two lines of code, we can actually call the person's dunder init methods and give it the first name and the last name. And we do that, we call the base class overridden method by using this funny thing called the super. And then in super, we can actually call dunder init, and we can give it the value for the first name and the value for the last name. And then what happens here is, yeah, it would actually call this method, and it will create the first name and the last name attribute for the teacher object. And then once that's done, it will create the salaries, and then we'll be good. So let's run this, and yes, here we go. So yep, that's exactly what we did here. So just want to say this again, that when we say super and parentheses, okay, do not forget parentheses. Super parentheses, it refers to the base class instance. So excuse me, super parentheses dunder init actually calls the base classes init dunder init method. Now, there is a different syntax for this, and you can explicitly say that you're calling the base classes, in this case, persons, than the init. Now, if you call it by dereferencing the class itself, then you have to explicitly say which instance you're operating on when the person done the init method should be operating on the teacher's instance, right? So that's why it's given itself. But it's really not a good idea to hard code a particular class. One of the reasons is the inheritance hierarchy can change. So what if there is another intermediate class between person and teacher, let's say an employee, right? Something like that. So and in that case, hard coding the name of the class is really not a good idea. So I would say just don't ever do this. So use super most of the time, if not all the time. All right, so next thing is, well, we also want to fix the dunder string method, right? Remember, we also, part of the dunder string method was also kind of just copy and paste, right? This part. So by the same token, really, that we can also call super dunder string method, and that would give us this part, okay? And then we can concatenate that part with what we want to have in addition. So for the teacher class, the additional information is the salary. So we'll just concatenate that part, and if we run this, and yep, we have exactly the same thing as before without duplicating the code in the base class. All right, so that's, yeah, that is the slide. And basically now I would like you to write some similar code, and that is for the student class, right? So many of the, well, all students at Foothill has this CWID thing. So please try to add the CWID attribute to the student class, by adding it as a parameter to the Dunder init, and also add it to the Dunder string method.